But this baby can be a fresh start. A chance for us to do family the right way. Listen, sweetie, I promise I'm gonna do everything in my fucking power to get this family on the right track. For your baby. For my grandbaby.
Now, if you didn't think Monet was the worst mother before, then I'm sure what we saw play out in part 1 of season 4 might have changed your mind. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe you think that crown still sits with Rock or someone else. In my personal opinion, at least with Rock, she did try and push Kanan down the right path. Ultimately, it was his decision to follow in the footsteps of his mother by basically living and dying by the gun. But either way, whether you agree or disagree, what we've seen play out over the seasons through a number of lies, manipulation, control, death, committed by or linked to Monet, and more recently, flashbacks, it is safe to say, Monet hasn't been the best of mothers for pushing this life on her 3 kids. Not to forget what happened to her eldest in Zeke. Now, over the last few weeks, we have been going through every single character in detail, week by week, and in terms of the main players, I do think we just have Monet left. So, we're going to run through how she found herself fighting for her life and also her family early in season 4, the various flashbacks we've seen and are definitely yet to come, and generally what we can expect going forward, with a few predictions and theories for all things Monet Tejada in Power Book 2 Ghost, Season 4, Part 2.
Look, I didn't get us in this street shit, but I damn sure made us survive it.
You've been telling yourself that lie for so long, you're beginning to believe in your own bullshit. Think about it. I wasn't here when this drug operation really took off, now was I? This is all you, but you wanted it all for yourself.
At the end of Season 3, Monet Tejada is unknowingly betrayed by her youngest children, Drew and Diana. Consequently, she is riddled with bullets and her fate is still unknown. As we enter Season 4, Monet continues to fight for her life while everybody engages in a war. While conscious and unconscious, we'll witness Monet's internal battle with her past via flashbacks. This will provide an insight into the side of Monet we've never seen, her origin story. Faced with the reality of how her own actions have created the circumstances they are in today, Monet must decide once and for all whether it's worth more to fight for the family business or for the family itself. Now, this was Monet's character description that was released heading into Season 4, and it will kind of serve as a foundation for the rest of this breakdown. We started Season 4 with Monet riddled with bullets fighting for her life, but the question wasn't exactly in regards to whether or not she was going to survive. We always knew she would. The question was this one of her kids behind her, or was Monet hallucinating and seeing herself slip away?
Well, hey, you're not dead. Yet.
But I don't know what you're fighting it for. I mean, your whole life has just been one fucked up decision after the next, starting with leaving me.
So it always had to be Monet, hearing some home truths. But I do think Mecca delivering some home truths was a bit rich, considering who he was and also how manipulative he was. I definitely do agree with some of the things he definitely said, and Monet definitely needed to hear it, especially because she did have a lot of blood on her hands, and the early hallucination did paint a good picture of how much blood is actually on her hands. There was Mecca, Lorenzo, and Zeke, and those are just to name a few. There are definitely a few more. Now, she'd argue everything she did past and present, she did what she had to do in order to protect her family, but I would personally disagree. Was pushing the life on Drew, making him miss his art exhibition the best for Drew when he was a kid? Was killing Lorenzo in the best interest of their family? Sure, he did kill Zeke. He was impulsive and made a huge mistake. At times, you could also question his leadership and decision making, but the difference between Lorenzo and Monet was that Lorenzo always put the family first and owned up to the mistake and took accountability.
I thought I was shooting him, but it was Zeke. It was fucking Zeke. I never meant to hurt you, Somo. It was a fucking accident.
So there's Lorenzo taking accountability for his actions. However, on the other hand, we still kind of had Monet trying to justify her actions early in Season 4, even after she just luckily survived. She couldn't understand that she was the problem.
All this time I'm out here blaming Tariq for everything. But it's clear to me now, you're the problem.
And this is one of the main reasons why Drew was unable to forgive. Lorenzo was the glue that kept them together, and after her part in his and Gordo's death, the relationship with the rest of the Tejadas was pretty much broken beyond repair. Especially considering the fact Diana and Drew tried to take out Monet towards the end of Season 3. That was one of the big issues that they had to address in Part 1 when it came to Monet's story arc, her finding out her kids weren't exactly being honest with her, which is where we saw the Diana flashback. Instead of doing what kids normally do, Monet had them helping her cut product, but not only was she pushing them and teaching them the game during their childhood, she was also teaching them how to lie, just like mothers tend to do in the Power universe, but ironically, her teaching her kids how to lie was something that came back to haunt her years later.
I think Diana lied to me today. I just can't figure out why. I had to, and I just never thought this shit would be used against me.
So, Ghost Season 4 may be all about Tariq being like father like son, but you can extend this to Diana being mother like daughter in more ways than one, and we are going to get to her relationship with Diana in a bit more detail in just a moment in regards to what we can expect in part 2. Now, as we approach the halfway stage, it was only a matter of time before Monet kind of figured out the truth in regards to who was really behind her assassination attempt, although I do think we do have to raise the point of how Tariq took the blame in exchange for Diana's safety. I do wonder whether Monet will ever figure out it was actually Tasha, or whether that ship has long sailed. I personally think with just 5 episodes left, it probably won't be brought up again. If there was a season 5, then maybe it's a conversation that would definitely have popped up. So maybe it's just something to keep in mind. Are we going to see Tasha and Monet come face to face? Just keep that in mind. Now, Janette's introduction to Book 2 Ghost as Monet's cousin sister, who knows her better than anyone, was like having a fresh set of eyes and a new perspective in the Tejada house. I always make a reference to how it's important to look at different perspectives of certain situations, and in essence, this is what Janette did. She wasn't just here to help Monet with her rehab, she was here to help unlock Monet's origin story through various flashbacks, and also tell Monet where she's been right from wrong, which not many people have managed to do so far in Ghost.
You brought Zeke here. You put him in the middle of this life. And you didn't prepare him. And then you fucked Dante and you let him back into our lives.
Now, Lorenzo did try and tell Monet that she had to look in the mirror when it came to Zeke, but because Monet is very stubborn, it goes in one ear and out the other. She always believed what she did was for the best of the family, but with Janette, because they're practically sisters who grew up together, when she spoke, she definitely listened.
But being in this house, over the past few weeks, I see it now. You the problem.
She said something very similar to what Cane said in season 2, except this time, Monet took it on board, and that's what kind of unlocked the Drew flashback. She finally thought maybe she was the problem after all. So, I think even Monet would now agree, this probably wasn't her proudest of moments. Instead of pushing Drew to go and pursue something he had a real passion and talent for, she had him here doing runs in a dangerous and unforgiving world. And just have a look at what it did to him. Ever since we were introduced to Drew in season 1, all he ever wanted to do was draw and live a normal life. But because his life was pushed on him, he was basically given no choice, even though Lorenzo was the one who said, don't mix your kids with family business. So, I do also think we have to raise the point, Monet lied when she told Diana this at the end of season 3.
Now, you put all this on me, but what about Lorenzo's hand in raising you? He chose this life for us, not me.
Don't fucking mix our kid with business, Mo. That shit will not end well.
Now, as we're on the topic of flashbacks, we still haven't seen a specific flashback in regards to Monet and Cane. We did see a baby Cane when Monet hid a gun in his baby seat, but we haven't seen one like we've seen one with Drew and Diana, and I really do feel like they're saving that specific flashback for a specific moment in part 2. Cane says he's done being a mama's boy, but I want to see what Cane thinks when he finds out about Noma and Davis. I want to see what he does if Noma gives a choice in regards to picking her over the Tejadas. I wonder if a moment like that will bring this flashback to the forefront, which reminds Cane of what Monet may have done for him when he was younger, because it has been teased. Monet was there for Cane when something super important happened when he was younger. She was there for him at a time when he really needed someone, and I guess that's why he's such a mama's boy. Whatever happened brought them really closer together, and whatever happened probably reminds Cane of some sort of deep emotional pain, which is why he probably always gets annoyed when Drew pokes him about being a mama's boy. Woody's also teased that they've never really got time to tap into their backstory of Cane Tejada and Monet. So maybe something that is brought to the forefront in season 4 in part 2, especially because they have left some clues through various conversations dating all the way back to season 1.
You were good kids. Good to me, good to Cane, good to each other.
So, I personally do feel something big will happen that reminds Cane, or even Monet, about why it should always be family first, and I do think it will be in another flashback.
Revenge ain't always about blood. Trust me. That's a fate that's worse than death.
Now, one of the major problems that Monet will have in part 2 is trying to free herself and her family from being under the thumb of Detective Carter. Towards the end of 405, she found herself in a position where she had no choice but to agree to his rules and also his price of 35%. In the teaser for part 2, we then have Detective Carter and Monet in conversation. We've also got Carter holding her, Diana, and Tariq at gunpoint. The Tejada house is also being raided by Nico Calder and Felicia Lewis, which is probably where Drew gets arrested, which may or may not be in connection and linked to Salim's death. But either way, this is going to be one of the big issues for Monet in part 2. And so how does she deal with the Detective Carter problem, especially if Drew's in jail, Kane's on Team Noma, and Diana could be having issues with her baby? I think she's going to have to turn to her thinker, Tariq.
You're my thinker. Think!
History's proven across 3 seasons of Ghost, Monet will always turn to Tariq when shit hits the fan. And I do think it's going to be the same here. They're going to have to work together. But I do think it's going to take more than just Tariq's brains, which is where I think Rashad Tate may come into the frame. They're going to need someone as powerful of Rashad Tate's caliber, who may even be fueled by the death of his brother. And I do think come the end of season 4, Monet and Tariq will succeed. But it's just a question of what damage does Carter leave behind. Does he put some of these guys in jail, or does he kill anyone else? What damage will he cause before he's taken off the chessboard, if he is? So, pulling her family out from under Carter's thumb, including helping Drew, will be a major focus for Monet in part 2. Now, Carter and saving Drew will be just one aspect of Monet's story arc heading into part 2. There's also a relationship with Diana, and also her potential granddaughter or grandson. We all know the relationship between Monet and Diana hasn't always been the best, but with Diana being pregnant, it does give this relationship another chance. Monet is going to see it as a second chance to do right by Diana, and a second chance to do right by this baby, bringing him or her into the world in the right way, not like she did with Zeke, Cane, Drew, or Diana. But is it too late? I personally think so, and here's a prediction based on what we've seen through various teasers and images. I do think early in part 2 episode 6, we will see Monet and Diana having this mother and daughter relationship, Monet helping her with baby things, them bonding like we've never seen before, but then, in ruthless power fashion, the baby being taken away from them, which is something I have been through in detail in Diana's character breakdown. So, we've already asked a question in regards to what will this do to Tariq and Diana in terms of their mindsets, but I think it's only fair if we ask the same question for Monet. What would this do to Monet Tejada? I think it's going to push Monet back to doing what she does, reverting back to her old ways, unleashing this cold-hearted character that we're all used to seeing. Just when we're starting to see her character change, the baby being taken away will unleash all hell. That's what I think is going to happen with Monet, and revenge will definitely be at the center of the storm when and if this tragedy does strike, which I fully expect to happen at some point in part 2. Now, the last and final question we have to ask when it comes to Monet is, just like we've done for every other single character, is how does the story end for Monet Tejada? Again, I do think it's a bit of a mystery with the kind of circumstance we find ourselves with season 4 being the last. I do think she will lose her grandchild. I also think she's going to lose Drew. Does Cane then go and do his own thing, and maybe the same could also be said about Diana? So, where does that really leave Monet? On her own. Now, in my personal opinion, I would love Monet's character arc to end with her going to prison, because I would love Ghost to end in some sort of realism, with law enforcement picking up a huge win. You know, keeping real to the consequences of this life that they live, either ending up dead or in jail, where she then has to sit in a prison cell contemplating all her life choices, all that she's lost, and the position that she now finds herself in. An orange jumpsuit instead of her $30,000 outfits. So, that's what I would like to see when it comes to the end of Monet's character arc. But that's where we are with Monet's story arc heading into the last and final chapter of Book 2 Ghost. So, where do you see her story ending? They've already teased nobody is safe, but does the story end in death, jail, or will it be open-ended considering season 4 wasn't supposed to be the last? Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.